Good evening. You're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, a matter of life and death and having the choice over where that matter will be decided. All people that on earth do dwell, we hear the big hymns. And this in a week of Friday the 13th. I'll be talking to Dr. Alec Gill, author of a book on superstition. Welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Riches. First of all, it's over to Richard Morris for the news headlines.
Hello there. The Total Lindsey Oil Refinery have announced 180 job losses. 400 will remain at the site. The company say they are investing £33 million into the site while reducing capacity by 50% by closing down one of the crude distillation units. Over the next 5 years, the refinery will invest a further £150 million in turnaround maintenance and other improvements. The Fire Brigades Union have confirmed today that firefighters in England will strike for a 24-hour period in the coming weeks. The planned strike is over guarantees of full and unreduced pensions if a firefighter fails their fitness test. The union say they cannot accept these pension changes as they take no proper account of the real work firefighters do. We'll bring you more news on this as we become aware of it. The Chancellor, George Osborne, was in Lincoln on Thursday celebrating a new investment for our region. Siemens may already be a major employer in Hull, and now its offices in Lincoln have won a contract for more than £30 million to deliver gas turbines to a major South American company in Colombia. On Wednesday, Hull was visited by a cabinet minister in order to receive congratulations. Stephen Williams MP visited the city to say how pleased he was in the use of the money for regenerating empty housing by the city. The scheme is a £15 million investment from central government and also allows local apprentices to train up while they're on the job.
Well, we're spending about £200 million in this Parliament, bringing back the really sort of difficult properties around the country where maybe the owner is absentee, a property may have been derelict and empty for a long time, and bring them back into use. And the really pleasing thing, the reason I'm in Hull today is Hull's been the most successful place in the country for using that programme. About 570 houses have been brought back into use. I mean, we need to build lots of new homes too, because we've got a growing and successful country, but it is a shame that there are lots of long-term empty properties in every town and city in the country, and many of them could be brought back into use and could provide modern homes for people.
That's all from me, and I'll be back with more news soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, Richard. Hymns were at the centre of school assemblies back in the day, but in recent years they've fallen out of favour. However, Grimsby Minster is at the centre of an initiative to bring hymns back into schools with their Big Hymns Day. Dave Nunn is in good voice.
It's something that's fallen out of tradition, but now hymns are making a comeback and are proving quite popular, as I saw the other day at Grimsby Minster.
We're calling it a Big Hymns Thing, and it's across the day we'll have 500 primary children from schools across North East Lincolnshire coming to learn hymns and songs for assembly singing on the basis of things they've asked us to do.
The Big Hymn Day proved incredibly popular, with several hundred pupils from many different primary schools taking part throughout the day. Stephen says that schools and pupils want to learn new hymns to sing in assemblies.
We work in partnership here at the Minster with the Music and Performing Arts Service, and they do an annual review in schools where we talk to all the primary school heads. And a lot of the heads were saying, we do assemblies every day, we sing. Some heads were saying we don't sing. Some were saying we've had the same CD and we keep using it over and over again. Can you put something on? Well, of course, we're known for our music here, for our singing, for our choirs, and it's something that we're very keen to develop as an event we were keen to put on.
Singing has always been a cultural and collective activity. People like Stephen say that this cohesive approach to singing is why children find it so popular and enjoyable.
I think learning to sing is to just taking that to one side for a moment. Singing is something that human beings always do when we get together, be it at a football stadium, or at a funeral, at a wedding, whatever it might be. Humans, when they get together, sing. And children love singing. It's an instrument all of us have got. Everybody can sing. All children can sing and enjoy doing so. And then why sing hymns? It's important that children are introduced to the spiritual side of life, and whether they have a faith or not, or develop that later on in life, it's just something of being introduced to what's going on.
As singing has become less commonplace in schools, it seems that it may be experiencing a comeback.
You're watching Estuary TV News. A little later in this programme, we'll be visiting another lovely dog of the week, and Richard Morris will bring you all the sports news. This Friday will be Friday the 13th, day of dread for some and of complete indifference to other more rational people. I'm with Dr. Alec Gill, author of a book on the subject of superstition. Alec, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And this is your book, Superstition, Folk Magic in Hull's Fishing Community. So it's very specifically about that community.
It's about that community, and but with superstitions. I mean, what they say is, of all seafarers, there are none more superstitious than fishermen. And so whenever you've got a fishing port, like Grimsby or wherever around the world, you've got a high degree of superstitions.
Well, you say of all seafarers themselves are incredibly superstitious, aren't they? I mean, you can't whistle for a wind, you've got to scratch a backstay, you can't have vicars or women on ships and things like that.
That's right. And there are lots of prohibitions that you do get, which you're hinting at there. On sailing day, there's lots of superstitions around there. The women weren't allowed to wash on sailing day. They were definitely weren't allowed to go on see the trawlers off to sea, and they weren't allowed to, empty. I mean, even 24 hours after sometimes the men left, they wouldn't clean the ash from the pan, from the ash pan, the fireplace. And there's all these worries about sort of wishing the man out of the house and not washing on the day they sailed. It's a bit like, I love the thing about superstitions is nobody ever wrote them down. They've just come orally.
Well, it is. It's a great folk tradition, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's a sort of bardic tradition.
Very much, the Celts and everything else. And with the not washing, there's a Fraser's book, The Golden Bough, going back to about 1923. And he talks about mimic magic. And by washing the man's clothes, his jumper or whatever else, you're like mimicking, plunging him under the water. And so that's the taboo there. Never wash on sailing day or you'll wash your man away.
Just explain the origins of the Friday the 13th
Yes, with Friday the 13th. Well, there's the biblical account and then there's the pagan one.
Okay.
Quickly, I mean, I've done lots of talks on this topic of Friday the 13th and superstitions globally. But you've asked the audience and they say, oh, well, Friday the 13th, it's obviously that Jesus got crucified on the Friday and there were 13 at the Last Supper. But then I say, oh, well...
But surely that was on the Thursday.
What, the Last Supper?
Yeah.
Well, it's like today with the preceding running up to it.
Okay.
But no, the Last Supper, there was 13 there. And people make these associations. And the associations with superstitions are usually illogical. But when you look at it closely, whenever Jesus was with his 12 disciples, there was always 13 of them. And we don't look at the Sermon on the Mount or as being unlucky.
So what's the pagan explanation?
Well, and just briefly, Friday, the Christians call it Good Friday and not Bad Friday. Now, the pagan one goes before all that, obviously. You've got the Friday is linked in because of all the days of the week, there's only one named after a woman, and that is Friday.
Right.
And you've got Freya.
The Norse goddess.
The Norse goddess. And the other days of the week, they're named after Norse male gods. I could go through them, but...
No, that's all right, but Freya's day is
Freya's
Friday.
the one day of the week named after a woman, and so there's taboos around a lot of women. And now the 13 is interesting, because although we have 12 calendar months, there are 13 lunar months. And this is where moon magic comes in as well. And the moon and women, there's lots of mysterious elements, speaking just between you and me.
Sure, well, there's a certain cyclical element there, isn't there?
There's the menstrual cycle and all the rest of it, which is a mysterious thing as well. And so when you get to the realm of superstition, there's sort of women and goddess. There used to be lots of goddess worship, and we've already mentioned Freya. And but the Norse and the Vikings, I mean, this area is saturated with things to do with the Viking settlements and all the rest of it. So the days of the week and various things have linked with our pagan roots, you see.
I don't have any superstitions myself because I think it would be bad luck.
Yes.
Do you have any superstitions?
Well, by doing the work, I've actually become... I wasn't brought up in a fishing family. And my dad was on big boats with the Elmer Wilson line. But no, I resisted getting into this area originally because of that. And then your academic training, a lot of rubbish. But when I got interviewing the Hazelroaders and fishing families, a lot of the stories revolved around the superstition, so couldn't ignore them. And so I began to note them down and build up a list. And it grew into my biggest book. And so they're central to things. And so I decided to analyse them and look at the origins. And like I say, it's done me quite well.
And your background is as a scientist, as a psychologist. So what do you make of the fact that we have this irrational behaviour, that we have this sort of unreasonable attempt to pander to our own luck, as it were?
Correct. Well, the brain, as you know, is in two halves, the left and the right side. And the left side is linked with logic and language and mathematics and, you know, rational things. But if you go into the realm of the right hemisphere, that's where you've got more affinity with music and poetry, and the irrational mind is there. But beneath these left and right hemispheres of the neocortex, you've got beneath that the old primitive brain at the end of our spinal column, and that is where I think we're... See, the word superstition is linked with survival.
There's a sort of atavistic desire to talk to the weather somehow, isn't there? That
and Mother Nature.
To communicate with the uncontrollable parts of our environment.
Correct.
Exactly.
And superstitions, irrationally, they do give us a false, albeit a false, sense of degree of control. You know, by touching wood, you're not tempting fate, and, you know, you shouldn't boast about yourself.
Alec,
this sort of thing.
Alec, we're going to have to stop there just briefly, but we'll come back in a couple of minutes.
Thank you very much.
Don't go away. Home care is increasingly used by the NHS to ease pressure and offer more customised treatment. In Hull, the CIC, in partnership with Macmillan, have been trialling a scheme in which terminally ill patients are allowed to die at home. Dave Nunn went to find out more about the scheme and spoke to Pam Brazier, whose husband Tony was cared for and died at home.
Choosing to receive healthcare at home is nothing new. Women are able to undergo home births, but what about dying at home? Health authorities in Hull have been trialling this in a care scheme alongside Macmillan.
Yeah, it happens in lots of places, but for us, we've been working on our end-of-life care services since 2008, and we've been developing the options for people to be able to live and die at home. We know from experience, but also from recent research, that 79% of people would like to die in their own homes. This is mainly because they feel more comfortable in their own environment, with their own facilities around them. They can stick to their own daily routines, and the people that they love and are close to are much more closer to them than in a hospital environment.
Pam Brazier's husband Tony was diagnosed with a terminal illness with a couple of days of life left. He chose to die at home, and Pam says the experience and the staff made the experience much easier to cope with.
Yeah, absolutely magnificent. The best people going. As I say, if it hadn't been for them, I couldn't have done it. And Tony did not want to die in hospital. So I said to him, no matter what happens, you will not die in hospital. And once we were diagnosed as fully terminal, and well, the doctor said he only had a couple of days. So everything was just shot into place. Bed was here, everything was here. They're like Tony, everything else. He proved them wrong, 7 weeks. You know, and that was Tony. He was determined. But he went real poorly in the finish, but they kept changing his medication. They kept doing everything to keep him comfortable and happy, and it was so peaceful in the end. It was marvellous.
As the NHS seeks to change care, Ange thinks home care schemes like this are the future due to their more personal nature.
Often clinicians and people that are involved with clinical care do become very focused on the clinical aspects of care, when actually I feel that the most important thing about end-of-life care is being with that person. It's about giving something of yourself.
I'm still with Dr. Alec Gill, expert on superstition. Alec, we interrupted you a moment ago, but you were just explaining that there's a part of the brain that's irrational.
Yes, well, more the right hemisphere than the left, but then you've got this deep, primitive part of the brain, which is, imagine the spinal column, and then at the top you've got this primitive brain that's very much linked with our survival. Our survival instincts, you know, because if there was a fire in this building and all the rest of it.
But there's also, and of course it's irrational and completely unreasonable, but there is an aspect of it which is sort of Pascal's wager in a way. And Pascal said that if you, it's better to believe in God, because then if you're wrong it doesn't matter. But if you don't believe in God and you're wrong, there are significant consequences. And the same with superstition. There's so much of our lives that's random and that's uncontrollable, and that does seem like pure luck, that whatever we can do that might control what seems irrational is itself going to be irrational.
Right. And the thing about superstition, I think it's like a double-edged sword. On one hand, you're sort of wanting to attract good luck to you, and on the other hand, you're wanting to avert bad luck.
Yes, it's negative and positive.
A negative and positive, yeah. You know, it's like heads I win, tails you lose.
Yeah.
So, but another thing too is science, contrasting science versus superstition, the old enemies in a way. Science is strong with certainty. You know, if you can apply mathematical formula and gravity and Einstein and light and all the rest of it, you're fine, and everything's comfortable and predictable. But with regard, a lot of life is uncertain, and it's when you're in these uncertain situations, i.e. on a trawler in the Arctic waters or wherever, and you're facing the unknown elements, that is where superstition, I believe, comes to the fore and helps us with regard to our human survival. And we can defy the gods and risk the odds. And you take, like who dares wins, you know, the SAS. And so that's why I think, if you look, I mean, with due respect to the religions that are around today, I think that superstition is the bedrock of all beliefs, and that they've all grown out of superstition. But as a result, they may be like hating their own parents. You know, they're all a product of superstition and irrational associations. But they... And they're happier, the modern belief systems, because it's a comfortable life.
And they change, though, over time as well, don't they? Because
Hopefully.
there are all sorts of superstitions that perhaps in the ancient world, you know, you wouldn't have a glass of wine in the ancient world without sprinkling a few drops on the floor as a libation to the gods.
Oh, right.
Now, we don't bother to do that nowadays.
We spill salt, though, don't we? And over,
over our shoulders.
over the left shoulder, because that's where the devil sits. I mean, it's all stupid. Whereas an angel sits on our right shoulder.
Tell me about some of these more specific Hull and Grimsby superstitions that they took to see. There were certain taboo words that could never be said, and there was an aspect of animals.
Yes, hundreds of taboo words that you couldn't say. But with regard to animals, I mean, the skippers, I mean, the taboo word, strong taboo word in Hull is PIG. I don't even say it. And
You're the rational man.
I know,
here.
I'm the rational man, touch wood. But equally, in the word in Grimsby that the Grimsby skippers used to hate is rabbit. And they would say, you know, so bushy tail thing and all that. They always had alternative names. In Hull it was curly tail for the PIG and spelling it and all the rest of it. But no, what would happen is you'd have the skippers off the coast of Iceland, you know, whatever, and they'd be on the radio to each other. And the Hull skipper might try and wind up the Grimsby skipper and say, oh, I'm going to have a rabbit pie today. Oh, and the Grimsby skipper, no, don't say that, you know, I've got my necks down. And vice versa.
But presumably the origins are older than radio.
Yeah.
But they go back further than that.
They go back to, well, you hinted at pagan times and all the rest
Well,
of it.
you've said it now. Turn around 3 times and spit. That's you've said the word now.
That's right.
But what about, I mean, do you walk under ladders? Do you walk on the cracks in the pavement?
Well, when we were kids, we all did that, didn't we? Tried to looking at the cracks and all that sort of. I do. And like you say, there's an etiquette with regard to superstition. If you go under a ladder, then you're supposed to spit, or you see a magpie. You can salute it.
Oh, I do that.
Yeah,
yes.
and throw in the salt.
Yeah.
And if you've got cross knives, what you do, if you remove the lower knife first, then you'll avoid the argument.
Really?
Oh, yeah, there's all this etiquette.
And of course,
about
you must
cracking
never,
eggs as
you
well.
must never give a knife, must you?
No.
You must always pay a penny or
Always
something in
pay a
return
penny.
for a knife.
Otherwise, you'll cut the friendship.
You can't have a knife.
That's right.
as a
Oh, no,
gift.
you're well into it.
Alec, oh dear, it's tragic, isn't it? Just tell us about this book. It's not available in print, but it can be. You've got an e-book out. Where can people get the e-book?
Well, through Amazon, if I can mention that word.
Through Amazon.
And through the Kindle, just Google Alec Gill superstitions, and it'll come up along with my other ones.
Alec, that's extremely kind of you. I look forward to reading this. Crossed fingers.
Yeah.
And not walking under any ladders. Alec, thank you very much.
My pleasure, you.
Good luck.
Good luck to you. Thank you.
Another dog of the week now. This will break your heart.
(317), another staffy, white and tan, another dog for castrating. Obviously we will give a voucher out for that. He has been microchipped by ourselves, so that will need to go through as well. He's been with us for over a month now, so he's looking for a good home as well.
Now here's the sport this week from Richard Morris.
The Hull Stingrays took a point in the Elite League last night despite suffering a shootout defeat at the hands of the Braehead clan. The Rays were 38 seconds from securing victory in Glasgow but conceded late in regulation play. Hull went into the game against the league leaders without injured captain Matty Davies and Jordan Knox. Hull continue in 7th position in the Elite League. Aston Villa have sacked their manager Paul Lambert on the back of losing to Hull City on Tuesday night. The Tigers won 2-0 at the KC Stadium, which now appears to have prompted the sacking of the Villa boss. Hull overtook Tuesday's opponents with the win and are now clear of the Premier League relegation zone by 1 point. Meanwhile, Hull City's youth team midfielder Ryan Fallowfield have extended his loan at Harrogate Town for a further month. The versatile 21-year-old has scored once in his 8 appearances for the Conference North side since he joined in December. Grimsby Town have rearranged their Conference Premier clash with Dover for Tuesday the 24th of March. The original tie was set to take place on February the 3rd but was called off because of a frozen pitch. The rescheduled tie will kick off at the Crabble Stadium at 7:45. 4 players from Hull Kingston Rovers youth teams have been called up to represent their country. Back rowers Chris Brown, hooker Elliot Windley and loose forward Owen Harrison have been given the chance to play for England's youth team. Towering prop Chris Smith has been named in a 24-man England Academy squad. Both of KR's youth teams are in action this weekend with the under-16s hosting Castleford Tigers at the KC Lightstream Stadium. And that's all for the sport.
Thanks very much, Richard. Just time to read out one Facebook message here. Carol Thornton writes in, "Thank you, Carol. I rather like Estuary, and now the signal seems to have improved, I can watch more often. Their programmes are A, local, and B, often rather restful. Makes a pleasant change from all the doom and gloom elsewhere." I'm glad you find us restful, Carol, though please don't fall asleep. If you have a story for us, then please go to our Facebook or Twitter pages, details on the screen, email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 31553. Until tomorrow, good evening.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Friday will be cloudy with some morning showers, then more persistent rain spreading from the west after midday, perhaps locally heavy, strong southerly winds and a maximum temperature of 7 degrees. Saturday will see some early rain die out, then mostly dry but cloudy with some light winds.